If this was a war, it would be over. Ukraine would not exist anymore. This is a special military operation, and that's not just Russian propaganda at play. It's a statement of fact, a statement of reality. There are limitations to what Russia is seeking to accomplish, and the means that Russia is using to accomplish this. And so we just need to be straight up honest about this. If this was a war, Zelensky wouldn't be alive. The Ukrainian Rada wouldn't be able to convene to vote ridiculous legislation, and the Ukrainian army would have been destroyed a long time. Oh, it's a special military operation with very limited objectives the elimination of all NATO presence in Ukraine. This means demilitarization of the Ukrainian armed forces, and the Russians offered to do it the easy way. Voluntarily, Ukraine opted to resist, pushed by NATO, and now it's being done the hard way. But 400,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers means it's being done, and it will continue to be done. Denazification means the end of the Bandera. Scourge on the planet, Banderas exists everywhere. I was down in Ellenville, New York, drove by the Banderas camp. That's there where they have a monument to the heroes. Stefan Bandera, Roman Shishkovich, and the other disgusting people from Ukrainian nationalist history are here on American soil. They honor them. Just this year, they held a camp where they brought together children of American Ukrainians who wear the uniform of the Ukrainian Scout movement, a brown uniform that looks very much like the Hitler Youth, and they hold up the portraits of Stepan Bandera and they carry banners with Nazi symbology on it that exists today. When this conflict is over, that should no longer exist in Ukraine. The evil that was Stepan Bandera that continued to manifest itself today through the ideology of the Zelensky regime should be terminated. And Ukraine will never be allowed to join NATO. Ever. It will not happen. Has anything good come out of this conflict? Not a damn thing. The Ukrainians are being slaughtered. That cannot be seen as good. It should never have happened. The United States and NATO have wasted hundreds of billions of dollars of their respective taxpayer money providing equipment to Ukraine in the vain hope that somehow that will allow Ukraine to defeat Russia. An insane concept to begin with. This equipment has been destroyed. It's not achieving what they wanted. The Ukrainian government still exists. This is not a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. These are not good people. They are not a democratic society. They are not representative of anything other than the hate-filled ideology of Stefan Bandera. That's not good. And NATO is in the process of pretending that it is relevant. It's had a summit where it wants to expand NATO military power, imposing a tax burden on the citizens of Europe who shouldn't have to waste their money on the false promise of militarism, which is what NATO is. It's not a defensive alliance. It's an offensive alliance. It's shown this repeatedly, and it is responsible for the aggression that's taking place today in Ukraine. Nothing good has come from this war except a following. The world no longer has an excuse to buy into Western propaganda about Russia. Russia is on the right side of history, and the world is starting to see that. You saw it in the gathering in South Africa with BRICS Summit, how well Russia was received. Yes, Vladimir Putin couldn't attend because of the absurd International Criminal Court warrant that was put out for his arrest. Sergei Lavrov arrived as a hero in Russia, was treated as a major player on the world stage, treated very well, better than the United States is treated in similar situations. So you could say that that's good, but we can't talk about anything good coming from this conflict until this conflict is over. And this conflict will only end on terms that are acceptable to Russia. And sadly, this means that even more Ukrainian men are going to die. Tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions more of Western taxpayer dollars is going to be squandered in terms of destroyed military equipment given to the Ukrainians in a futile effort to defeat the Russians. Tens of millions of Ukrainians will be displaced from their homes. Trillions of dollars of damage will be done to the Ukrainian infrastructure. There's a possibility if this war goes on long enough, Ukraine will lose more territory permanently to Russia, and that the Ukrainian state, what we can call a state that emerges from this conflict, will be a shadow of what it was before this conflict began. But the good news is NATO's dreams of expanding into Ukraine as part of their overall strategy to destroy Russia, to defeat Russia, will have been defeated, and NATO will have been exposed as the arrogant, imperialist, aggressive military alliance that it is. And hopefully, by exposing the truth about NATO, it'll lose its luster. And 50 years from now, people will be talking about something that has been as opposed to something that continues to be.
How's the situation of the Ukrainian army today after these failed counteroffensive?
They're dying. I mean, it's as simple as that. They're dying. They're failed. Well, they have made for TV moments. They just did one the other day where Ukrainian commandos went on speedboats, landed on some obscure peninsula on the Crimea Peninsula, ran up, put a flag on a building, took a picture, and then ran away. And they're calling this a victory. Meanwhile, Russia is destroying the Ukrainian army on the field of battle where it counts. Ukraine can have little propaganda victories here, there, and everywhere. But the bottom line is their army is being destroyed. The army that NATO built is being destroyed. It's not succeeding in its goals and objectives. Meanwhile, the Russians, in addition to destroying any attacking Ukrainian force, has launched their own attack in the Kupiansk area, where they're advancing, threatening the capture of Kupiansk, threatening to overwhelm the Ukrainian defenders, threatening the city of Kharkov with "no, this is not going well for the Ukrainians, and it won't go well." There will never be a moment in history going forward where the Ukrainian army is going to have a good day. Every day is going to be a bad day for them from now on.
Do we know any opposition inside Ukraine that challenged the Zelensky administration?
I think the Zelensky administration has spent the last year and a half destroying any vestige of democratic institutions. There's no longer a free press in Ukraine, so how can you have an opposition point of view be heard by the people if it's silenced and suppressed by the government? Any opposition politician that spoke out is treated as a traitor, because to question Zelensky means you support the Russians by default. So they've been killed, murdered, they've been arrested, tortured, driven out of the country. There is no opposition, and the Ukrainian people are scared to speak out.
We know after these cluster munitions they're sending, they're talking about cruise missiles. How do you see the Biden administration's policy?
It's a policy that's criminal in terms of what it's doing to the Ukrainians, because none of those weapons have turned out to do anything other than prolong this war and kill more Ukrainians. The cluster munitions have not had a meaningful impact on the battlefield. Yeah, they've killed some Russians, but it continued a war that Ukraine's losing. Ukraine is losing men at a rate of 8 to 10 for every Russian kill. So every time they fire a cluster of munition off and let's say it kills 20 Russians, you got 106,200 Ukrainians dying as a result. That's not victory. That's math that'll never add up to a victory. This is stupidity on a massive scale. Criminal stupidity. The F-16S, it's a joke. It's an old fighter. Don't people understand what Denmark and the Netherlands and now Norway are giving to the Ukrainians' expired fighters, fighters that no longer have operational life in them? That's why they're giving them away. They're giving them fighters that are unsafe for NATO pilots to fly. But we're going to let Ukrainian pilots who have no training fly them against one of the best air forces in the world, supported by the most deadly air defense system in the world, and we say we're helping the Ukrainians cruise missiles again. Why do people continue to buy into the ludicrous notion of a wonder weapon? Wonder weapon is an ideology that came or a concept that came out of World War II. Adolf Hitler, by the way, where he had the V-1 and the V-2 rockets. These were the wonder weapons. They were going to change everything. They killed people, but they changed nothing. And the Germans can give Ukrainians the Taurus missile. It's not a game-changing technology. Russia is fully aware what Taurus missile is, and Russia will adapt to its inclusion in the battlefield threat model, and they will destroy it. They will neutralize the platforms delivering it. They will alter their footprint on the ground to make ineffective any targeting. And the war will continue, with the Ukrainians losing.